Good morning, children. Welcome to yet another session of Geography, Class 10, Water Resources, Session 2. Now, in our previous session, we had studied about the need to conserve water. We had studied about the rainwater harvesting and the need for irrigation. Now, in this session, we will be talking or discussing about the means of irrigation, and from your book, page number 132, only the main points you underline, whatever is important, whatever point which I am discussing but not in your book, please write that point in your book. Okay, now we start with well irrigation. Irrigation by well, now it has been seen that is an age-old method of supplying water for domestic purpose. About 40% of the irrigated area in India is under well irrigation. Now, what is done in a well? A small hole is dug in the surface of the earth to obtain water from the water table. Now, wells are of two types. You may underline this, the lined and the unlined wells. Now, what are these lined and the unlined wells? Now, lined and the unlined wells. Now, this is the lined well. Lining, where lining is given with bricks. That is called the lined well. We can see this picture here and it gives us the idea of lined well. Now, in the unlined well, that is man-made well in which no such a system is done, no lining is given, and it's just it's just dug up manually and without any thing. So this becomes the unlined well. Okay, now back to the page. Now, there are some suitable conditions for digging the well. Now, areas where you will find the well irrigation. Now, before that, whether generally you find in the areas of alluvial soil. So, the prerequisites for digging a well is that the water table should be high, the ground should have soft rocks, and there should be the soft rocks, that would mean alluvial soil. Now, the areas you may underline that the most of this Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Goa, Haryana, Bihar, Rajasthan, Gujarat. So, wherever, not mainly in the northern regions, you will have this well irrigation. Is that clear? Nowadays they are found in the south, but when they are mentioning the areas, please don't mention the states of the south. Mention the northern states, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Bihar, West Bengal. So these are the main states where you will find well irrigation. Okay. Now this well irrigation, water may be lifted in number of ways. It can be the Persian wheel method. There the picture has been given in the next page. Then is the lever method, where they are lifting the bucket with a long arm. That is the lever method. Then inclined plane mode, and in this also, this is known as mohote. In this type, a pair of bullocks move down the slope inclined plane specially constructed from the wall of the well with a bucket of leather bag which is discharged into connecting the channel pulling from behind. So they are lifting, they are made to walk the inclined plane, the bullocks, and with that, as they walk, they are lifting the bucket of water also. So this is the different ways in which the well irrigation, the water may be lifted. Otherwise, simply the way they are lifting it by pulling it tying it with a bucket and then pulling it up. That is the oldest method of just drawing water from the well. Now, there are some advantages of well irrigation as well as disadvantages. So, about the advantages of well irrigation, it is one you can say, if it is not mentioned, you may please note down. It is cheaper to construct as compared to canals and tanks. Now, it is mentioned here that we can dug at a very low cost. That means even for the poor farmers. So, that means it is cheaper to construct. It is an independent source of irrigation and can be used by individual farmers. Okay, you may write this. It's not there. Independent source of irrigation and can be used by individual farmers. Well can be dug anywhere when required and where water table is high. Now, this is also very important. Several chemicals such as nitrate, chloride, sulfate, etc. are mixed in well water. They add fertility to the soil when well water is used. Okay, you may add this point to your answer. And the farmer has to pay for the canal irrigation, whereas for the well irrigation, he does not have to pay anything and he has the control of the well. Then wells are simple technology and are economical. Okay, now for the disadvantages of well. Children see. The surface of well is not deep enough, then they may dry up during the summer. They can irrigate only a small area, wells. And sometimes the surface wells turn out to be salty or brackish in nature. And then water is not useful for drinking or irrigation. It is difficult to dig well in the hilly region of the north and the stony areas of the peninsula. Lots of effort is required to draw water from the well. Okay. So, if this is not there, then you note down the extra points which are given. Is that clear? Now we come to the next one, which is a tube well. Now the tube well is a deeper well at a depth of 20 to 30 meters from which water is lifted up with the help of power driven pumps. It is known as the lift method. So here it is going even deeper than the well and it can draw water from very deep inside. Okay, now where it is again used? It is used in the states of Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Now the conditions which are required for drilling tube wells: the water should be high, the ground should have soft, preferably alluvial soil, and there should be regular cheap electricity to run the tube wells. Another thing, the land around should be fertile, otherwise it is of no use. Okay, next is advantages of the tube well. Yes. Now it is an independent source of irrigation. Yes, just like the well, it is also an independent source of irrigation. It brings up clean water. It can irrigate a larger agricultural land, unlike the simple well, which is only able to irrigate a small area the tube well is able to irrigate a larger area. It is easier to bring a large amount of water in a short time period. It is a perennial means of irrigation as it is drilled up to permanent water table. It can be switched off when not required. Okay. Now, another thing is that it is useful during, you may add this, useful during the drought conditions when surface wells dry up. And they require less effort to run. You just have to switch off and switch on. So doesn't have to be drilled up. So just only a small effort is required. And they do not cause pollution. They bring pure water. And another thing you can add, that it requires a less area compared to surface well. Even a small area it requires to drill the tube well. Okay. Now there are some disadvantages of the tube well also. Now the farmer has to spend money on electricity or diesel. The tube well draw large quantity of water, therefore the depletion of the groundwater in the surrounding areas, and it is useless if the water is brackish. Apart from that, the ones which are mentioned is that excessive use can lead to depletion. This is mentioned already. It is useless if water is brackish, and it is expensive. So all these 3 points are there. That is tube well irrigation. Okay. Now we come to canal irrigation. So canal irrigation is more common in the northern plains. Now, India has one of the world's largest canal systems, stretching over more than 1 lakh kilometers. So we'll come to the 2 types of canals later, but first let us understand that canal irrigation is common in the northern plains. Why is it common in the northern plains and not much in the southern area? Now, in the northern plains, there is low level relief with deep fertile soil. Perennial source of water is there. And broadly speaking, canals in India are of 2 types: inundation canal and perennial canal. So we will study about the inundation and the perennial canals. Now what is inundation canal? What does the word inundation mean? Now the word inundation means flooding. So when the flooding takes place, the water is filled in these canals. So that is why they are called inundation canal. These canals are taken out from the rivers without any regulating systems like wires or barrages at their head to regulate the flow of the river. So in inundation canal, there is no wires, no barrage. Only when the river is in flood, the extra water comes down and it is just fills up these canals. The canals are taken out from the rivers when they are in flood, and when there is excess of water. Hence, they are dependent on the rains to supply for water. And in this case, that is the inundation canal, only the low level regions can be irrigated by these canals. Okay. The higher regions cannot be, because the flow of the canal is towards, the canals are made in such a way that they are at a lower level. So when the river is flooding, the extra water enters these canals and these drain into the fields. Okay, now there are some advantages of the inundation canal, that is, they can be cheaply built and they are useful in controlling floods. You may note this. Now for the disadvantages of the inundation canal, there is uncertainty of water supply. Only the low land areas can be irrigated. Uncertainty of water supply, that is, it is only giving water during the flooding time, only when the river is in flood. Now Now we come to the perennial canals, and the perennial canals, they are very useful. They are able to give water throughout the year. Now what does the word perennial mean? The word perennial means that it is throughout. The water is there throughout. So these canals are taken out from the perennial rivers by constructing barrages or dams to regulate the flow of water. They can draw water throughout the year and irrigate large areas. Most of the canals in India belong to this category. So most of the canals, they are perennial canals. So they are constructed by making barrages or dams to regulate the flow of water. So it is giving water throughout the year, not only when the river is in floods. And there is a method to control the flow of water. Okay, now the advantages of perennial canals. These canals serve throughout the year. They are cultivation of some crops can be carried out throughout the year. So some crops you can just carry out throughout the year because there is ample amount of water. Okay, now there are some disadvantages of the canals, these perennial canals. The problem of salt effluence due to overflooding of the fields, which makes the soil unsuitable for farming. Now what happens, it is mentioned here, if it is too much of waterlogging takes place and it's mentioned in your book also that they are not regulated, flooding occurs, the area turns swampy, the soil becomes infertile, so there is more salt which is accumulated and hence that region becomes infertile in nature. So this is one of the disadvantage of the perennial canals. Another is that the waterlogging case of unlined canals. Now if the canals are unlined, then again the waterlogging is there. Now apart from that, the canal irrigation where the water table is a few feet below the ground, the alkaline salts come to the surface and mix with the salt and make it unproductive. Okay, so these are the few disadvantages of canal irrigation. Now in this purple chart, this chart here, which is mentioned the states and the canals. Now all the states and canals you need not remember, only remember Uttar Pradesh Sharda Canal, which is important. One of the years this question was asked. And then you remember the Rajasthan Canal, which is in Rajasthan, the Indira Gandhi Canal, which is coming from Bikaner, also known as the Bikaner Canal. Okay, now about the longest canal, it is the longest canal. It is also called the Rajasthan Canal, it is also called the Indira Gandhi Canal, and it is utilizing the water of the Satluj, Beas and Ravi, and it is irrigating hectares of land in Rajasthan. irrigating Ganganagar, Bikaner, Jodhpur, all these areas are getting irrigated from the waters brought from the Satluj, Beas and the Ravi river. Is that clear, children? Okay, I end up here. We'll continue with the tank irrigation in my next session. Till then, you stay safe, stay at home. Thank you.